Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Alberta expands its vaccine eligibility to everyone 12 and up beginning today as a shipment of 2 million doses of Pfizer heads to Canada. Plus, the University of Lethbridge is offering an incentive of free tuition for getting vaccinated. We give you the details. And a pastor in Calgary arrested for violating public health rules. We speak with his wife about how he's doing.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Several provinces are expanding their vaccination programs this week as another shipment of 2 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine arrives in the country. Alberta started accepting vaccine bookings for kids as young as 12 this morning. Saskatchewan is dropping the age for appointments to those 29 and older. The next shipment of Moderna's vaccine isn't due until next week, and there's no word when Canada will receive more doses of the AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson vaccines. 7% of Albertans have received their second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and with the younger age group of those 12 years and older having been approved by the province for their first dose, BCN's Ainsley O'Reilly broke down what this means for Lethbridge residents.
Albertans aged 12 and up have two options when it comes to booking their vaccine: direct booking with Alberta Health Services or contacting one of the 34 locations in Lethbridge listed on the AHS website.
To find a location with vaccine in stock or learn more about the current government eligibility criteria, please visit shoppersdrugmart.ca/COVID-19.
Some are accepting calls, but most will direct you to book online. Once you're on the wait list, the pharmacy may send you a memo saying it could take weeks or even months. However, that is not always the case.
I booked Saturday and today is Monday, so 2 days?
Not too bad.
Yeah. A lot of them said 4-week wait on the website, and so I was expecting beginning of June, something like that, but I was pretty happy that I got in really quick.
Pharmacies can request up to 200 doses. The challenge becomes when exactly they will arrive. The medicine shop by the hospital will administer 200 doses between Monday and Tuesday.
Challenging for them too, because they have to modify their own schedule and they have to come and get the vaccine right away or within a day or two. That's what's happening lately.
So we got right now presently, I think we have about 250 or 280 people on our waiting list. So once we know when that vaccine is going to come in, then at least we can start offering those people to set up a booking and book an appointment.
Back in February, when Albertans 75 or older became eligible, AHS's website crashed because the demand was so high. Vishal Sukurdia says there was a greater demand at his location when those 65 or older became eligible.
We had for every 200 doses, we had 1,000 people on a wait list. But now the wait list is getting shorter.
Pharmacists say that come summertime, the province will provide centralized booking. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Thank you, Ainsley. And Health Minister Tyler Shandro says the province's booking site has been busy today. He says that within the first 5 minutes, more than 1,300 appointments were made. Alberta leads the prairie provinces in being the first to take vaccine bookings for preteens. Now that post-secondary age students are eligible to receive their shot in the arm, the University of Lethbridge is giving them the chance to win fall tuition through a new initiative called It's Worth a Shot. As Micah Quinn explains, staff at the U of L say that well over 400 students have already registered.
The University of Lethbridge is hoping for a safe return for students in the fall of 2021, and they're doing that by making sure that students get vaccinated. If students get a COVID-19 vaccine, they're able to register to win one of 9 prizes. Some of these prizes include having their tuition paid, along with student, fine arts, and sports and recreation fees as well.
They form the largest part of our community, and we want to make sure that they're healthy and that they have a good experience this fall. So it's really so that we can get back to an in-person and safe experience at the university.
7 University of Lethbridge undergraduate students will be awarded prizes, along with 1 University of Lethbridge Calgary campus student and another to a graduate student. The U of L Students Union president, Holly Kletke, says that this is an encouraging move by administration.
I think that, there are policies and conversations to be had, but to see this kind of fun, engaging, and beneficial contest come from the university is really encouraging to students.
The announcement today coincides with the Alberta government's decision to allow people aged 12 years or older to receive their vaccinations.
So it's perfect timing from our perspective. And, very importantly, we see it as probably one of the most significant and important investments in our students.
Winners will be announced on September 10th. For more information on the contest, you can visit the University of Lethbridge website. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
According to Alberta Health Services, the province saw an increase of 1,597 COVID cases in the past 24 hours, bringing the total of active cases to 25,438. To date, there have been 2,117 deaths. 690 people are in hospital, with 158 of those in the ICU. As of Sunday, 1.9 million vaccine doses have been administered. New mandatory health restrictions are now in effect province-wide in high-case areas like the South Zone, including Lethbridge. Beginning last night at midnight, retail stores are limited to 10% of fire code capacity or 5 customers. Personal and wellness services like hair and nail salons are once again closed. Province-wide restrictions include restaurants, pubs, and cafes being open for takeout or delivery only, and all K-12 schools have shifted to online learning until May 25th. The Lethbridge Food Bank has a new executive director to man the helm. Mac Nickel has worked for the Interfaith Food Bank and the Alpha House in Lethbridge, just to name a few. Now he's ready to start a new chapter at the Lethbridge Food Bank. Nickel says he will work hard to make sure that clients are getting the food they need in the future.
As well as reaching out to clients that might not have access to the food bank. So opening up new avenues of getting food to clients, be that sandwiches in the park or to opening in other hours, so people that work full-time jobs that maybe still need the assistance can still access the food bank. I feel like there's a lot of embarrassment built into people about the food banks and trying to access it. In reality, our community wants to support people in a troubled time, and that's why we exist, and that's why we have such good community support, is people want to make sure that if you're in a position that you need food, you can come here, access it, judgment-free, and we can make sure that you have a good place to work out of, and this shouldn't be a place of embarrassment, but empowerment.
Nickel assumed the responsibilities at the food bank on May 3rd. And one of Nickel's first projects in his new role is overseeing the 4th annual Mindful Munchies program in partnership with My City Care. This free lunch that is provided to school-aged children who have signed up for the program is distributed via delivery drivers to the students' homes or to their schools. Nickel says that this year, due to the transition to online learning, the demand for drivers has increased.
So our Mindful Munchies program was started 4 years ago. Its goal is to provide lunches to school-aged children. In times before COVID, we provided it directly to the schools where kids could access it. Now with COVID and moving schools to an online model, we're working with My City Cares on delivering our lunches to students. Some schools are available to drop off for them, and then they can disperse it out. But we also have drivers come here to do individual delivery. Unfortunately, our deliveries are on a wait list now. We have had a lot of support in the last few days where a lot of people have been calling in to access. If you still want to get into the Mindful Munchies program, that's fine. Give us a call at 403-320-1879. And we can sign you up, and then you can just come down to the food bank and get a week's worth of lunches at a time.
So far this school year, the program has distributed over 30,000 lunches. You can volunteer as a delivery driver by emailing carol@myvictory.ca. Bike Medicine Hat is a nonprofit society that pursues a collaborative approach to make cycling better and safer in the Gas City. They have recently partnered with Cycling Without Age. This program allows seniors to go for bike rides on custom-built trishaws operated by volunteer pilots and feel the wind in their hair. Carter Gramlich, who is the chair of Bike Medicine Hat, says the initiative is a great opportunity to help seniors get outside more.
We all love riding bikes, and just because people get older and aren't able to physically do it anymore, we think that they would still appreciate that opportunity to go for a ride, to see the community, reconnect with nature, see people out having fun and smiling. This past year, of course, has been, extra hard for people who live in facilities. So we're really hoping that this program can bring some smiles to faces and get people outside.
The Lethbridge Police Service is seeking the public's assistance in locating a missing teen. 16-year-old Amy Savard was last seen in the downtown core in Lethbridge, and she's missing from Calgary. Attempts to locate her have been unsuccessful so far. She is described as about 5'6" and 140 pounds with a medium build, hazel eyes, and medium-length brown hair. Anyone with information on the location of Amy is asked to contact LPS at 403-328-4444. The Lethbridge Police Service has charged a Coaldale man with drugs, weapons, and driving-related charges after a traffic incident on Sunday. Police say the man rear-ended a vehicle with his car on Highway 3 and 28th Street South about 6:20 p.m. and then fled the scene. Police later located his abandoned vehicle in the 2900 block of 2A Avenue South. He was arrested a short distance away, and police seized a hatchet, a machete, and a knife, as well as methamphetamine valued at about $1,700. Drug paraphernalia and a small amount of cash were also seized. Daniel Edward Collier of Coaldale, who is 43 years old, has been charged. Police say Saturday's shooting death of 19-year-old Tony Delippi in Burnaby, BC, and Sunday's murder of 28-year-old Carmen Gruwal at Vancouver Airport's departure terminal are part of the same gang conflict. There have been 10 shootings in Metro Vancouver in recent weeks, including 2 in mall parking lots filled with vehicles and pedestrians. Police haven't made any arrests in either of the weekend killings. A Calgary pastor who's recently made international headlines for kicking police out of his church and calling them Nazis and Gestapo was arrested over the weekend. Pastor Artur Pawlowski and his brother Dawid Pawlowski were both detained by Calgary police for allegedly violating proposed public health rules concerning in-house church gatherings when they conducted a church service on Saturday. Their arrest came after Alberta Health won a Court of Queen's Bench order on Thursday that prohibits all public health meetings, marches, and demonstrations during the pandemic. I spoke with his wife, Marzina Pawlowski, today about her husband's arrest and how he's been treated while in jail.
It's not fun to know that your husband is locked somewhere and they make sure he's not comfortable. I mean, no blanket, no mattress, no nothing. The lights were on. He was very tired, but to break somebody like Arthur it will take more than that. Like, they squeeze his hands, they throw him like a sack of potatoes. So David, his brother, he said he has a terrible migraine, because imagine white room, painted white with those bright crazy lights, and all night all the inmates or the other inmates, they turn off the lights, but for David and for my husband, they kept them on. This is your revenge. You have your 5 minutes of Pawlowski being in a station. Good for you guys. Congratulations.
Other media sources are saying that Pastor Artur Pawlowski has been granted bail. We will be following this story as it develops. For this week's poll question, we asked, do you agree with pastors being arrested and charged with breaking public health orders? Yes or no? Please visit our website at bridgecitynews.ca to share your answer, and we will share the results of the poll this coming Friday. Meanwhile, a restaurant owner in central Alberta was also arrested this past weekend for violating public health orders. Chris Scott, who owns the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta, was taken into custody after holding an anti-lockdown event. Scott has become known for speaking out against the lockdown measures on behalf of struggling business owners.
We're not asking you guys to help us make a whole bunch of money here. We're asking for your support. We're asking for your voices. We're asking you to show up and stand up. Unless we start paying attention to what's going on in our government, the legislation that's being passed, this is not going to stop.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh believes that there's a connection between anti-mask and anti-lockdown protests being held across the country and far-right extremism. Police have been criticized over what some people see as a lack of enforcement action, and in response, a few premiers have promised stiffer fines. But Singh says refusing to obey COVID-19 public health orders is dangerous behavior because it puts people at risk. He says the behavior needs to be called out.
And an extreme right, that kind of ideology is connected with not really caring about the people around you. It's a selfishness where personal interest takes over from a community protection and interest. And we're seeing, that is a trend with the extreme right.
Premier Jason Kenney recently announced that reopening the province's economy would depend on more Albertans getting vaccinated. So, could vaccines be developed right here in Alberta? Well, according to one Calgary-based company, it could happen soon if the right funding is received from the feds and the province.
We are focused on the development of two raw materials. One are called cap analog, and the other one's called plasmid DNA. And cap analog is really kind of one of the essential elements to make messenger RNA. You've heard that's the new buzzword in the world today, is messenger RNA. Yeah, it is. It's new technology. It's disruptive technology, I believe. And it's the basis of a couple of the most well-known vaccines. But we also think that it will be the basis of lots of other applications in the future once the pandemic is gone.
Catch that whole interview with Brad Stevens coming up after the business news. Ontario will likely mix and match COVID-19 vaccine doses due to an uncertainty around future supply of various shots. Health Minister Christine Elliott says it's likely that recipients of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine may receive a different shot for their second dose. Quebec has also said it plans to mix vaccines due to supply shortages. That province will substitute the Pfizer vaccine for the Moderna shot in order to quickly give booster shots to long-term care residents. Ontario's Deputy Premier says the government will likely extend the current stay-at-home order as the province reports 2,416 new cases of COVID-19. Christine Elliott says experts are advising the government to, quote, stay the course on the restrictions that are set to lift on May the 20th. Quebec, meanwhile, is reporting 662 new COVID cases today and 6 more deaths. That province announced that it has given second vaccine doses to all long-term care residents. Manitoba is adding 498 new cases to its tally and 4 more deaths. And Nova Scotia's borders are closing to all but essential travel today as the province reports 121 new infections. Manitoba Premier Brian Palliser is defending his government's decision to quickly move schools in Winnipeg and Brandon to online learning. Palliser says proactive decisions delayed the third wave, but now it's impacting the province.
Yesterday, Dr. Brent Roussin, our education minister, Cliff Cullen, announced that kindergarten to grade 12 schools in Winnipeg and Brandon will be moving to remote learning effective this Wednesday until May 30th. I want Manitobans to know this decision was not made at all lightly, and that keeping our schools safe and open has always been our objective. For students, for staff, for families that are visiting, this has been at the forefront of the entire COVID pandemic response planning. Keeping students in the environment in which they learn best, closer to their teachers, is the environment we would prefer that we could have them in to the greatest extent possible. that proactive actions taken by this government and by the people of Manitoba have allowed us to delay this third wave significantly versus most other jurisdictions, certainly outside of the Atlantic bubble. So we delayed the third wave, but we're in the third wave. So what's the challenge now? And the challenge is simple. We have to shorten that wave. And the way we shorten that wave is we follow public health orders and we get vaccinated.
It's the time of year when many of us are thinking about cleaning up our yards. We asked Karen Barbie, co-owner of Green Haven Garden Center in Lethbridge, when it would be a good time to pull out our rakes and start raking up some of that dead grass and leaves.
The grass is greening up quite well here. That raking and cleaning up actually needed to happen in April this year because we were very dry this winter. There was a lot of leaf cleanup and everything that needs to get done right away. So it's basically for us too late for power raking, but you can do a hand raking, and then fertilizer should start now, and you can do it every couple of months. There's some good spring, summer fertilizers that will help keep that lawn nice and green.
And with more on lawn maintenance, be sure to catch that full interview with Karen Barbie from Green Haven coming up in the second half of our show. Well, we had a mix of sun and cloud today, but we could see those showers appear again by tomorrow. I'll have a full look at weather coming up after the break. Keep it right here. Well, don't let the sunshine fool you tomorrow morning, because by tomorrow afternoon, we are looking at a chance of showers and even a risk of a thunderstorm by tomorrow afternoon. High tomorrow, 14 degrees. That showers, activity, and thunderstorms should remain overnight Tuesday night with an overnight low of 1 tomorrow night. Into Wednesday, though, it should all clear up, giving us beautiful sunny skies, 19 degrees the high, as this warm trend starts to make its way back to Lethbridge, getting us up to 20 degrees by Thursday and Friday with sunshine. And then, of course, the weekend comes and we're looking at a 40% chance of showers again with a high of 17. 17 also the high for next Sunday with a mix of sun and clouds. So, we're not in the single digits, so I'm happy. And, there's a couple days there that is above the seasonal average high of 17 degrees, so that makes me happy. 3 degrees is our average low temperature for this time of year. 31, though, was our high temperature back in 1940, and in 1946, our lowest was -9. 5:54 is when the sun rose this morning, and look at that, we're finally in that 9 o'clock hour. 9:02 p.m. is when the sun will set this evening. I'm noticing the longer days, especially in the evening. It's just lovely. Over on the west coast tomorrow, sunshine with increasing cloud in Victoria tomorrow, high of 17. Lots of sunshine in Vancouver as well, 17 the high. 60% chance of showers both in Edmonton and Calgary tomorrow with a risk of an afternoon thunderstorm. So much like Lethbridge, 13 the high tomorrow in Edmonton and 13 for Calgary. I said 16 for Edmonton, right? 13 for Calgary. Over in the rest of the prairies here, sunshine, 19 in Saskatoon. Beautiful day in Regina as well, also 19, 18 degrees and sunny skies in Winnipeg. Not too much wind in this area either. Only 15K winds in Winnipeg, 20K winds in Saskatoon. A little bit windier in Regina tomorrow. Chance of showers tomorrow in Toronto, 13 the high. Not so lovely in Ottawa either. We're looking at flurries or shower activities, high of 14, 15 the high in Montreal with a little bit of wind as well, 40 kilometer per hour winds. Over on the east coast here, 5 to 15 millimeters of rain expected tomorrow in Fredericton, and a possibility of a thunder shower. Same thing, thunder shower activity, a possibility in Halifax, 14 degrees the high for both of those cities. Chance of showers in Charlottetown, 12 degrees the high, and no rain expected in St. John's, Newfoundland, with a mix of sun and cloud, 11 degrees the high there. So there you have it. That's your weather forecast.
Today's weather is brought to you by Jeff Reimer of Royal LePage South Country Real Estates, 403-380-1779.
The U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is investigating 31 complaints about steering failures that could affect more than 1.1 million Honda Accord sedans. Honda has received 77 more complaints about the same problem, with owners reporting a loss of steering control and the cars veering from their intended travel path. The probe covers Accords from the 2013 through 2015 model years and could lead to a recall. The head of a German pharmaceutical company, BioNTech, who makes Pfizer vaccines, is opposing the U.S.-backed proposal to temporarily lift some intellectual property rights for COVID-19 vaccinations in order to boost global supply. Ugur Sahin says there is no need to waive patents on the vaccines because manufacturers will be able to produce enough shots to supply the world over the coming year. BioNTech announced a first quarter net profit of $1.37 billion U.S. today. It expects to manufacture 3 billion doses of vaccines this year and says 40% will go to middle and low-income countries. Ensign Energy Services says its first quarter loss attributable to common shareholders widened to $43.6 million from a loss of $29.3 million a year earlier. It says its losses in the quarter were partially offset by a $4.7 million payment from the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. The drilling and well servicing company says revenue fell 43% to $218.5 million as Canadian drilling operating days fell by 40% and Canadian well servicing was down 26%. It also recorded a 50% decline in drilling operations in the U.S., while well servicing operating hours fell by just under 4%. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 110 points to 19,362. The Dow was down 34.94 to 34,743. The S&P 500 was down 44 points to 4,188. And the Nasdaq was down 350 points to 13,402. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 2 cents to 64.92 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 3 cents to 2.93 US. Gold was up a penny to 18.36 US an ounce. And silver was even at 27.31 US an ounce. Wheat is at $355 per metric ton. Barley is at $360. Canola is at $983. Corn is at $410 per metric ton. Live cattle were up $220 to $118.23. Feeder cattle were up $373 to $135.45. Lean hogs were down 8 cents to $111.90. And the Canadian dollar was up slightly to $82.64 US.
Recapping one of our top stories today, Alberta leads the prairie provinces in being the first to take vaccine bookings for preteens. Starting today, Albertans 12 and older can get appointments for a COVID-19 vaccine. Health Minister Tyler Shandro says the province's booking site has been very busy, though. He says that within the first 5 minutes, more than 1,300 appointments were made. Coming up shortly, we speak with a Calgary-based company that says an Alberta-made vaccine could be close, but by the time it's ready, could it be too late? We give you the answer to that question and more right after the break. Stay with us. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney announced that reopening the province's economy would depend on more Albertans getting vaccinated. So, wouldn't it move us in the right direction to have vaccines developed here in Canada? According to one Calgary-based company, this isn't a crazy thought. In fact, if the right funding is received from the feds and the province, we could have vaccines developed right here in Alberta. Brad Stevens is the president and CEO of Northern RNA. He joins me via Zoom from Calgary. Brad, hello. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Jeanette. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the time.
Of course. Now, many Albertans may not realize some of the industries that call Alberta home. Can you describe for our viewers what Northern RNA does?
Sure. We are a relatively newly established CDMO, that stands for Contract Development and Manufacturing Organization. And so basically what we do is we work with other companies by way of contract, as part of the name. We try and what we do, work with other companies to develop raw materials that they might need, help them in the design of some of their products. Then we enter into manufacturing contracts and then provide them the raw products, raw materials that will go into vaccines or whatever they might be using the materials for.
Okay, well, you mentioned the magic word there because many Albertans are anxious for their opportunity to acquire a vaccine. So can you tell us about the role your company can take to actually make this a reality?
Sure. So right now, on our early phase one production, we are focused on the development of two raw materials. One are called cap analog, and the other one's called plasmid DNA. And cap analog is really kind of one of the essential elements to make messenger RNA. You've heard that's the new buzzword in the world today. Is
Exactly.
messenger RNA. Yeah, it is. It's new technology. It's disruptive technology, I believe. And it's the basis of a couple of the most well-known vaccines. But we also think that it will be the basis of lots of other applications in the future once the pandemic is gone. And so we make some of the essential raw materials that will go into these vaccines or whatever they might be used for in the future. And so we're working with, as I said, vaccine and other developers, providing these raw materials as essential elements in the production of vaccines and other materials.
Okay, that's amazing. So what kind of funding would you need for this to happen? Are you getting any attention from the feds or from the provincial government?
So we've been fortunate. Early on, we did receive a small grant from the federal government, a 50% spending grant from an organization associated with the federal government called Next Generation Manufacturing, or NGen. And we received a $1.6 million grant. That's, as I said, it's 50%. So if we spent $3.2 million, which we are getting pretty close to, we can receive $1.6 million in return for eligible expenses. And that's equipment, some salaries, those kinds of things. And so we've been very grateful for that effort, but it's time to expand already. And so we've been working as part of the provincial government process, working on our expansion plans to move into what we refer to as the next level, or a GMP, good manufacturing practice manufacturing, rather than just the current labs that we have.
So Brad, it sounds like the governments are somewhat on board with what you're doing then. Has Health Canada had any involvement as well? Have they looked at this, or do you need approval from them?
So we do in a small way. When we get into the GMP facility, it will actually be manufactured offsite, receive approvals, and then it'll be brought here and manufactured here on site. We have contracted with a company out of Quebec to deliver our site. And so Health Canada will weigh in at that point in time. As far as the raw materials and whatnot, we provide the raw materials to the company. They integrate it into a vaccine or whatever they're working on. That's when Health Canada weighs in with respect to the materials and products that we provide.
Okay, interesting. Now, as of early this week, the province reported that 1.6 million doses of the vaccine had been administered, and out of those, 303,000 Albertans have been fully vaccinated with 2 doses. That doesn't really sound like a lot, but we're getting there slowly but surely. So, Brad, if a portion of those doses had been manufactured right here in Alberta, what might that number look like today? How many more people could have been vaccinated by now?
Yeah, that's really hard to say. We began the discussions with the federal government and some of our partners, early on in the pandemic. But part of the process is that these companies have to go through research and development. They've got to go through, several stages of trials. And so it really kind of depends on how quickly those trials could have been accomplished to see how big a difference it could have been made. So I hesitate to give you an exact number. I think it would have been more. I think it would have been considerably more, and a little bit and quite a bit quicker, but I hesitate to give you an exact number. It really kind of depends on the research and development process.
Right, of course. So if it had happened, what could this have done for our economy? Anything?
Well, generally, of course, as the quicker people are vaccinated, and the quicker we get as many people vaccinated, then the quicker we will be able to, use the terms open up and get things back to normal. And so there's a direct equation there between getting doses, getting people vaccinated, getting the vaccines in the arms, and having things return to normal. That's absolutely critical. That actually is absolutely critical for our return.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point there. So how many jobs could potentially come out of something like this for Albertans?
just in the facility that we're talking about, we've ramped up to 10 with another 3 hiring, people being hired in the next couple of weeks. With our GMP facility, we think that with some support and help, we can probably triple or quadruple that number. And that's just in a company like ours. In the life science industry throughout the province, with some expansion and some investment, those a considerable number of jobs that can be created for sure.
Okay, that's excellent. Can you briefly describe how long the concept of the mRNA vaccine has been around? Like you said, that's kind of that buzzword happening right now.
Yeah, I'm not really the science side of it. I know that, messenger RNA is relatively new on the scenes, maybe 20 years ago or so, but that sounds like a long time ago, but in the grand scheme of things,
Right.
obviously, once the pandemic got started and there was funding made available, then the use of messenger RNA in the vaccines really picked up the pace last year. And I'm not the first to say it. Call it a miracle, call it whatever you want. There's just been some incredible speed in being able to deliver this new technology in a vaccine.
So, Brad, we recently had Andrew McIsaac of Applied Pharmaceutical Innovation on our show. Can you describe the relationship between the two organizations?
Sure. So, as I said, we're a relatively new CDMO, and as we got started and started to introduce ourselves to not only Andrew's company, but other companies in the life science area and pharmaceutical area in Alberta, I've had some really great conversations with Andrew and his team. They in some ways, they act as a little bit of an information hub. They know a lot about what's going on, and Andrew's been great for us in transmitting information and us being allowed to convey information to him as well. Technically speaking, as I understand my discussions with him, is that his company really provides a service at the back end of a vaccine or at the back end of the process, where whatever material ultimately gets in the bottle and gets in the packaging, that's kind of referred to as fill finish. That's kind of their expertise, and they're looking to expand that expertise. And we're really looking forward, with our partners, to working with them. You really begin to see how you can get the whole value chain or the supply chain right within the borders of Alberta itself. And that's what we're trying to work towards, where we're involved in the little bit more of the upfront, the manufacturing. And so that if we can get that full supply chain in Alberta, we won't be caught off guard again.
Yeah, exactly. Now, how soon could all this happen if all goes well?
So our expansion plans are very aggressive. Working with this company out of Quebec, we were able to, if we acted quickly, we were actually able to get into their supply chain. And so we acted upon it. Otherwise, we were going to have to wait a couple of years. So we're hopeful and expecting that, our facility will expand here late in Q2, early Q3, and then cross our fingers, late Q4. We hope to be developing and manufacturing a product late this year.
If this were to go through, do you feel that it would still be on time, or do you feel that maybe by then it's too late because everyone would have been vaccinated already?
Yeah, great question. That's the one we always get. It's never too late. There's going to be booster shots. I think that all of the leading companies have come out and indicated that there's going to be booster shots. Nobody knows for sure how long or what form that's going to take. Not only in Alberta, but Canada and the world. There's billions of people that need to have access to what we're talking about here. And so, no, I don't believe it's too late at all.
Have you received inquiries from other countries to manufacture vaccines for their citizens?
Oh, for sure. When they see the capacity that we're building very quickly, you got to realize, Jeanette, that we took the keys to our new facility here in January 4th. We've done a complete overhaul of the facility, remarkably, in about 90 days to get us up and producing. And so originally we weren't going to expand until next year, but the demand has been so big from other countries, other companies, that we took our phase 2 and moved it in to this year. And so, yes, there has been lots of interest expressed by other companies from all around the world.
That's great. Any final thoughts on what you wish to share with our viewers about your company?
No, we're just really excited to be a local Alberta company here in Calgary. We believe that this is the place. That we've got the know-how, we've got the desire here in Alberta to be able to build this industry here, and we're excited to be part of it. We think that we're going to be able to do some really remarkable things in the months ahead. And we're looking forward to being a part of this industry in Alberta.
Well, we will look forward to hearing more about how all of this is going to develop, and we wish you all the best. So thanks so much for your time today, Brad.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks for your time.
Well, spring is here and many people are itching to get their gardens going along with planting flowers, trees, and shrubs. But apparently there is a right way and a wrong way to do these things. So we thought that we should enlist an expert today. Karen Barbie is the co-owner of Greenhaven Garden Center in Lethbridge. Welcome to Bridge City News. Karen, so great to have you on today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So this year we had snow in April again, and then of course it can happen in May as well because, you know, we are in southern Alberta. Anything can happen, right? But with that in mind, when is it actually safe to start planting our gardens with the iffy weather that we have?
Well, there's some things you can plant early. So things that like potatoes and onions that go in the ground, they're underneath the soil, they're fine to plant. Radish seeds, lettuce seeds, spinach seeds, all wonderful time this time of year. Easy to do. So our gardening kind of means that you can't do it all in one weekend. It is over a period of time. If you want to have a lot going on, a lot of people are doing strawberry plants now. Asparagus plants can go in. So there's a fair amount of early garden stuff.
Right. Now, does that mean that those specific vegetables are resistant to cold and would be able to, you can actually plant it early in the season because they're a little bit more hardy?
Yeah, they're earlier and they like the cooler weather, so they don't mind it. I mean, we're over hopefully the heavy cold like last week, but now the soil is warm enough for those seeds. Even cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, people are starting to look at either seeding those out or soon they'll plant their little plants of those out.
Awesome, good to know. So now what do we need to do to prepare the soil for a good growing season?
Oh, that's the most important part. Really, it is. So it means when you have your vegetable garden, you want to have really good loose soil, and it needs to have. In southern Alberta, we have heavy clay soil, so loosening it up and amending it with any kind of good compost. So it can be composted steer manure, composted sheep manure, compost that you've done yourself, and you really work it into the soil. You want a good 6 or 8 inches worth, I'm still inches, of having that looser soil so that you can get your seeds and they'll start growing in that soil.
Okay. Now, any advice on how to control those bugs that like to destroy weeds and plants? How can we control those bugs naturally without damaging chemicals?
Well, there's lots of actually good organic chemicals, and I always say like you can't really do a preventative because some plants naturally don't have a problem, and others are susceptible. So there's a safer soap product. Woodstream makes a beautiful safer soap, and one called Trounce, and another one called Bug Be Gone. Those are all wonderful contact sprays. Soapy water that you use yourself with dish soap, sometimes you can burn your leaves or suffocate them. And you just wait to see if you have a problem. One thing that we always find, like with radishes, they're susceptible to a maggot, a root maggot. And so when you plant those, your onions and your radish, you can actually sprinkle a little Epsom salts in the row, but with your seed, and then cover up your soil, and that does help keep those under control.
Okay, interesting. Good advice there. Now, Karen, is it true that if you seed several times through the spring, like say every 10 days, that you can prolong your harvest of baby vegetables and those tender greens? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is true. So things like lettuce, all the different kinds of lettuce and radishes respond the best for doing that successive seeding, it's called. A few in herbs, not everyone does it with dill and cilantro, but it can be done. And it's really important to do it for the lettuce though, because you just get this really good crop. You can do it about till the end of June, when if we start getting really warm in July, they don't germinate so well. So you always have to do it starting May and little bit end of April, May, and into June.
Okay, well, good to know. Now, what about perennial plants? Do we need to do anything with them to prepare for a good growing season?
Yeah, that's not so much the soil. You can kind of work around them, cut off all of your dead leaves and dead stems and get everything cleaned up to the green again. And then you can always work in a little bit of compost around them. They're usually not heavy feeders as far as trying to fertilize, but compost is a wonderful thing. Bone meal is good, and you just sort of can work it into that soil. And they can get planted early now too. Perennials can take cooler nights, so you don't have to wait for May long weekend to plant perennials.
Well, it's good that they can take those colder nights because we do seem to have a lot of those. Even when we have the warmer days, unfortunately, it seems that way.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. Now, we all love green lawns, don't we? So when should we rake off last year's dead grass and be applying that fertilizer? And how often should the grass get watered?
Well, now we've had the moisture, so the grasses are green. The grass is greening up quite well here. That raking and cleaning up actually needed to happen in April this year because we were very dry this winter. There was a lot of leaf cleanup and everything that needs to get done right away. So it's basically for us too late for power raking, but you can do a hand raking. And then fertilizer should start now, and you can do it every couple of months. There's some good spring, summer fertilizers that will help keep that lawn nice and green.
Okay, so take note, everyone. Time to rake those lawns now because it's
Yes.
April.
Yeah, get all the old leaves off of it, and it's not growing really fast, but I think as we warm up, we're definitely going to see things greening up.
So put that on the to-do list for sure. How short should the lawn be mowed? Is there an ideal height?
I find that like 2 inches, so like 5 centimeters is a good depth. The lawn doesn't dry out really fast. It holds its own, but it doesn't get scorched and scalped. So that 5 centimeters is a good height to have. If you go lower than that, you run the risk of actually sunburning and drying out your roots on that lawn.
Wow, okay. I had no idea that could happen, but good to know. Now, Karen, do you have any tips on how to get rid of quack grass?
Oh, that's
And maybe explain
one of
what
our
quack
biggest...
grass is too as well.
Yes, because quack grass is a perennial grass that grows here on the prairies very well. It's very invasive, so it grows in lawns, but it can grow around the edges. It likes not such great soil. So if it's on the edge of sidewalk or something, it's very long bladed and it makes big clump, and it's not a pretty grass. But the more you try and pull quack grass, the more you're making it expand because you're pulling on those little roots, and that actually makes it increase rather than decrease. And there is no organic chemical control of quackgrass. That is the one that actually official Roundup, the chemical Roundup, will kill it. It'll kill the root, but you also have to be very careful with your grass that's growing around. And that's one way. If you try and dig it out, you'll just go forever trying to get all those roots, but you can do it if you're persistent. There is a new Roundup called Advanced Roundup, and it's a vinegar based, so it might just keep burning the green off, but not actually killing the roots.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a challenge. I have to say, quackgrass in Ontario, down east, they have one called crabgrass. And that's an annual grass that's a big problem there. And they can control that with crabgrass killers. We don't have crabgrass here. So our quackgrass is perennial, and it's very annoying.
Ugh, yuck. Okay, so what about those pesky dandelions? Speaking of pesky things, right? What actually works to keep those under control?
Well, if you have some spare time and like to be outside, you actually can dig the roots out, and that does help. There's actually little dandelion diggers that work quite well.
Okay.
So that's one way. There's another product called Weed Be Gone that's iron based, so it's not a chemical, and you keep spraying it, and it actually makes the dandelion go sort of black and can control it. Yeah, so it's fairly effective. And then back to the chemical, there's the one called Killex, which is not available in garden centers all across Canada. Killex is still allowed to be sold in Alberta, and it is the one that has the chemical called 2,4-D, which makes the dandelion grow to death, is what happens. It makes it grow real fast, and it kills it.
Okay, kind of just speeds up the process.
Yeah, speeds it up, yes.
Interesting.
So there are some choices for that one. It's definitely another one that people have to decide how much and what they want to do with the dandelions.
Yeah, very informative. Thank you. Now, do you have any specific advice on how to grow large, healthy tomatoes?
Oh, yes. We love growing tomatoes. I think that's the most important plant for every single person. If you only grow one thing in your garden, the tomato is so productive for us anyways.
Yeah.
And good soil, we love using that compost kind of stuff that works. There's some really good fertilizers, some organic that are excellent. And one product that they always seem to like is some extra calcium. So a fertilizer with extra calcium in it. There's liquid form and dry form. And just depending, you shouldn't use a dry form of tomato fertilizer in a tomato that's in a pot. In the ground, it's okay. But if you're growing tomatoes in pots, use a fertilizer you can mix with water.
Okay, interesting. Now, speaking of summery stuff, what's the secret to growing a large strawberry patch? We all love strawberries in the summer.
Okay, well then back to good soil again. And actually the strawberry plants are important. They do tend to burn, like grow themselves out after a few years. You might have to replace your strawberries like every 5 years. The June-bearing strawberries give you the biggest crop in the month of June, and they're actually the hardiest. These new ones called day neutrals will start in August and go till it freezes. Good soil again, and I find they're so-so for trying to grow in pots. You actually do better if they're in the ground.
Okay, and Karen, are there do's and don'ts of growing roses?
The roses are the two different kinds. There's tender roses that have lots of do's and don'ts because here on the prairies we have to protect that root for the winter, or you can get winter kill, and they're grafted. So the graft comes alive, but you don't have a rose plant anymore. The hardy shrub roses, there's lots of varieties of those. And really you just trim off if there's a little bit of dead stem on those. And lots of sun. So they need a minimum of, well, a good 6 hours of sun would be the minimum. They're better off with about 8.
All right. Now, is there a good time to plant evergreen or spruce trees? What's the best time to do that? Or is there?
Oh, they can get planted all summer, but the nice thing about planting those evergreens is that they have time for their root to develop. So as soon as the frost is out of ground and they're available at the garden centers, is a great time to get them growing. You've got cooler, not so hot and dry first thing in the spring, so they can get a root system established, and then they're okay. We do sell plants all year long. In the summertime, it's sometimes not as available. There's not as much choice available for those.
Okay. Now, if you were digging holes for those sort of coniferous trees, how big of a hole how big should you be digging, and what would you do for fertilizer and soil for that type of tree?
Oh, yeah, those ones, usually what you do is dig twice the width if it's in a pot. Most of them come in some kind of a container. So twice the size of that pot all the way around, and the depth about 1.5 times. And then you take out, with us, the clay soil that's heavy and not so great. And then you kind of work in and amend some better soil with it. Some triple mix soil is good, or some compost. Peat moss is good too. And then plant that plant back in. We sell a product called Mike, which gives our customers a 5-year warranty. So they have to apply that Mike right to the root ball and then plant it in. So you don't fertilize at that time. If you do fertilize without using Mike, something that's a root starting fertilizer, and that means it's quite high in that second number in the fertilizer. Usually that's sold in a liquid form.
Okay, great advice. Now then, on the flip side, what if you were wanting to plant more leafy trees or shrubs? When's the best time to plant, and what type of soil and fertilizers do those need?
That would be about the same as
Okay.
the evergreens. The more important thing with those ones is they go through a little bit more transplant shock with the leaves on them. So when you plant them, you try and do it when it's not in the heat of the day or really windy. Try and do it early morning or late afternoon, early evening. Yeah, so that helps them. And that soil again is critical to get the roots going and amending it a little bit. So compost seems to be the answer for just about everything
It's
for
the
those.
way to go. Well, what great advice you've given to all of us, Karen. Thank you so much for your advice and for your time, your expertise, and for being with us today. Karen Barbie is the co-owner of Greenhaven Garden Center here in Lethbridge. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.